What is going on, guys? It's Justin from the J Media, back with another video. So in the past video we talked about what is needed to turbocharge your Mitsubishi Lancer GT or Mitsubishi Lancer. It doesn't matter whether it's the ES, the SE, the DE, you know, any model, doesn't matter. Pretty much the same stuff you could use for my car, you could use on your car as well. Yeah, so if you guys want to watch that video first, talking about what's been done, make sure you check that out. Also, I have all my turbo videos on a separate playlist on my YouTube channel that I call Mitsubishi Lancer Turbo Build. So if you guys want to watch this from the very beginning, when I first started buying parts, to the whole process of turbocharging the car, tuning the car and all that, make sure to check that out. But yeah, I just pretty much got this car back from the shop a few days ago, and I'm super excited to have her back home in the garage. She's parked beside my Civic Si, taking the DC5 RSX spot. If you guys are wondering, I still have that car. It's my daily, and she's just sitting outside right over there. But yeah, today's video will be talking about the cost breakdown on turbocharging your Mitsubishi Lancer. Alright, so I'm going to do it in here in the interior because it's pretty cold out today. So cost breakdown. So there's a few ways you can turbocharge your Mitsubishi Lancer. So most importantly, two turbo setups you could use. One would be the TD04 Ralliart turbo setup, and the second one would be the TD05 Evo 10 turbo setup. So I know there's also another company called Road Race Motorsports out there that makes a turbo kit, costs about like 5,000 or something like that. From what I heard, it's expensive for what you get. I definitely recommend the OEM turbo setup because it's cheaper and pretty much does the same stuff. So you could turbocharge your Lancer. Again, doesn't matter what model, whether it has the 2-liter 4B11 engine or the 2.4-liter 4B12 engine. Both the Ralliart turbo setup or the Evo 10 turbo setup would work. Usually I'll recommend, if you stick to the Ralliart turbo setup, get all the Ralliart turbo setup parts. If you do the Evo 10 setup, do all that, just because certain parts doesn't bolt on if you mix and match. Yeah, so for me, I use the TD04 Ralliart turbo setup. So by the full turbo setup, what I mean is there's a lot of guys parting out their cars where you can get a full turbo setup. So you could try looking on like Facebook Marketplace, or I recommend joining like some Facebook groups, because sometimes some Evo 10 groups or Ralliart turbo groups or Mitsubishi Lancer Facebook groups, there might be people trying to sell their setup. You can also look on eBay as well, or Craigslist, stuff like that. If you know what you're doing, you can try to look at your local junkyard. I got it from a local Facebook group. So there's a bunch of groups out there. Just, you know, join the groups and ask people like, hey, are you selling a full Ralliart turbo kit, or are you selling a full Evo 10 turbo kit? And by full kit, I mean like it comes with the turbo manifold, the blow-off valve, the intercooler piping, fuel pump, injectors, blah blah blah. So all that stuff, everything pretty much needed to bolt on to your car and turbocharge it for the most part. Like I said, stick to either Ralliart or Evo 10. If you guys watched the previous video, I have mostly Ralliart turbo parts, but I also have some Evo 10 parts like the Evo 10 intake manifold, Evo 10 throttle body, Evo 10 cams. So those work. I mean, I kind of did more research, and if you guys are wondering if you could do it, you can. The reason I say don't mix and match is because if you buy the Ralliart turbo, for example, the TD04 Ralliart turbo, but you get the Evo 10 turbo manifold, they don't bolt up at all because it's different. The design is a little bit different. And sadly for the Ralliart setup, if you do that, there's not many aftermarket turbo manifolds. I might switch mine out in the future just because my turbo exhaust manifold looks not the best. And there's only one company that makes an aftermarket one, strictly modified, and they sell that turbo manifold for $1,000, which is expensive. Versus the Evo 10 setup, there's a bunch of companies out there. You can even go on eBay and look for like a no-name brand turbo manifold for like, I want to say $300 to $500. Again, pros and cons to both. The Ralliart turbo, you could, you know, you get boost a little bit lower, quicker, spools up quicker. If your goal is not like high horsepower or anything like that, it's fine because it spools up quicker. That's what you want. Plus with my car, it has the CVT transmission. I'm not trying to blow it up right away. Yeah, this is a car I really want to keep for a long time, so knock on wood, if it does blow up, I'll just swap in a manual transmission. But we are talking about the cost breakdown. So whether you get the Ralliart OEM turbo setup or the Evo 10 turbo setup, they both cost about the same. I would say a full setup, just OEM parts, you're looking at spending anywhere from $700 to $1,000. Again, I'm calculating in US dollars. So yeah, pretty much depending on, you know, main things to check is how, you know, obviously what the condition of it. If you're buying from someone online, make sure get and take photos. You want to check the turbo, how many miles are on the turbo as well. Of course, the lower miles the better. You want to check for shaft play, make sure the turbo can spin freely. You can ask the seller to take a video. Hey, with the turbo, just hold to the turbo, spin like the little, you know, turbo and see if it's spinning, or is there a lot of, is it hard to spin? You know, there's a lot of things you can do to check. If you don't know, I always recommend asking a friend who knows what they're doing or looking out for, or a mechanic. So yeah, OEM parts, let's say $1,000 you're spending. And then you also have to put aside some money for stuff like some other stuff like oil lines. So you need turbo oil lines, you need some custom fabrication work because you have to run, I guess, your oil line for your turbo. You also got to tap into your oil pan, you got to weld a bung. You know, stuff like that. So a little bit of customization is needed, and you know, you need miscellaneous stuff. I mean, with the NA to turbo build, I pretty much pick up random fittings, random wires, random pipings. It's just, that's how it is. So I would say for all that, you could budget maybe another $500 to $1,000. Again, depending. I'm calculating all OEM stuff, so I'm calculating right now like the cheapest possible way you could turbocharge your Lancer. And then next thing, you have to get it tuned as well. So, like I said in the previous video, you could either tune it with Rick with Rallinspired or Hiram with H Tuning. I personally got it tuned with Rallinspired. They have been tuning Lancers NA and turbocharged for over 10 years. So I trust Rick. He's the pioneer of, you know, tuning turbo Lancers. He's not here in Texas, but in California, so we're doing an e-tune. With tunes, the price could range from maybe about $500 to $1,000. Again, depending on what setup you have. He'll ask you to send all the mods that's been done to the car, ask you to send data logs, see how the car's running and all that stuff. So yeah, I would say maybe budget, like I say, $500 to $1,000. It depends on what mods has been done to the car. If you want fancy stuff like pops and bangs, or, you know, depends really what you want out of the car. And then also whether you're doing like an e-tune, or some guys like to do a live video call tune, you know, that might be a little more expensive. But all in on a budget, if you're trying to turbocharge your Lancer on a budget, stick to just the OEM parts. And then of course you need your oil lines and stuff. You need a tune as well. So on a budget, you're still looking at spending $2,000 to $3,000 US dollars. That's on the budget. Cheapest you could turbocharge your Lancer. Of course, if you find a good deal on the turbo kits, there's some guys maybe selling it for like $500, $600. You get to save some money there. Again, if you're doing it yourself, you save money on labor costs. If you're bringing it to a shop to get it done, they're going to charge you anywhere from maybe $1,000 to $2,000 or so. Varies on the shop labor costs in every country. Every state is different. So again, all the stuff, if you're doing it yourself, $2,000 to $3,000. If you're bringing it to a shop, maybe add in another $1,000 or so, you know, extra. So yeah, it's not exactly super cheap. It's not like a $500 turbo kit you can buy and throw it on and call it a day. But for me, you guys would know that I didn't just do the OEM turbo stuff. I have a lot of off-the-market parts. So let me show you guys quickly again, if you guys are new to the channel. Yeah, so as you can tell, I have a bunch of off-the-market parts. So not many OEM parts left on the car in the engine bay anymore. Some of them are rare and for show. Like parts like ARC parts are expensive. You know, ARC in the cooler, you could use the OEM stuff. You could use the OEM intake. Carbon front strut bar, that's not really turbo related, but something super rare as well. Another rare JDM part. Titanium upper intercooler piping, titanium lower intercooler piping. Again, you can use all the OEM stuff. I did spend quite a lot on this turbo build. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I know some of you guys are trying to like follow, you know, my build and stuff like that, which that's awesome to know that I'm inspiring out of other Mitsubishi Lancer owners. But just know that if you're trying to do everything that I'm doing here for my turbo setup, I spend a lot. For the money, it's not really worth it, but it's my car, so I build it the way I want. Pretty much, I would say a rough cost breakdown on all the turbo related stuff I spend, if I had to guess, it would be maybe close to $10,000. That's pretty nuts. I know. You guys might be wondering, I said OEM stuff $2,000 to $3,000. How did yours add up to $10,000? Let me see here. So, first things first, some rare parts. Carbon front strut bar right here already cost me like $1,000. My titanium intercooler piping, both upper and lower, also cost me about another $1,000. My intercooler right here from ARC, another rare part, cost me also about another $1,000. So that right there is already $3 grand. I have a bunch of stuff I haven't added up yet. So yeah, it's expensive. It can add up. What I recommend for most guys on a budget is just throw in all the OEM parts first, turbocharge it, have fun with it, and then slowly you can replace stuff. If you want a nice intercooler piping, replace it down the line. So to give you a rough perspective, this titanium intercooler piping plus my intercooler plus my lower intercooler piping, I spent about $2,000 just on the piping and the intercooler. That's nuts. But if you get the OEM stuff for say the Ralliart or the Evo 10, OEM intercooler piping, intercooler, you probably spend like $150 to $200. So that's a huge savings right there. Yeah, and it doesn't help that I like all these rare JDM parts. Even this intake box here is like $500. So, I'm not trying to flex. I'm just, you know, sharing with you guys that I love my JDM parts. While they look cool, they look good, they are expensive. You pay to play. And then, oh, another thing. So, earlier I mentioned, even on a budget, you need to get stuff like your turbo oil lines. There's also stuff that you should get, like your boost gauge as well as your air fuel ratio gauge. So I have the AEM boost gauge and air fuel ratio gauge. I also got an AEM oil temperature gauge. Again, if you're on a budget, you only need 2 gauges really. You need the boost gauge and air fuel ratio gauge. If you don't care about the brand, you can just get it off eBay, just some, you know, random generic brand. Honestly, I think I've seen those cheap ones go for like $50. It's pretty cheap gauges versus my AEM gauges. Since they're brand new, each gauge here is like about $200 to $300 for each gauge. So yeah, they definitely add up. Also, another thing is, if you are running a CVT transmission, you definitely want to keep it cool. So you have to spend extra money on transmission cooler. If you already have one, just buy one more. Have 2, double up. If you don't have any transmission coolers in the car, buy 2 and buy a fan. Just to keep your transmission nice and cool. I did that, switch out the transmission fluids, my transmission filters, all that, just to make sure your transmission is running nice and cool. So if you're a manual transmission, you don't have to worry about all that. And then some other stuff that I saved money on, I guess you should say, is one is my tuner with Rallinspired. Usually tunes, like I said, cost about $500 to $1,000. I am very fortunate that actually my tuner rig is working with me on a sponsorship, you know, to get the whole car tuned. I got it tuned when I was NA with him before. Now I'm getting tuned with him, turbocharged, and he does great work. Like I said, he's whatever questions. I feel like sometimes I'm asking silly questions because it's my first time turboing a car and my first time owning a turbo car actually. So a lot of questions I ask might be silly, but he really answers my questions. And then the next thing is, with this whole build, I actually was working with Long, the owner of Long's Automotive. So, you know, he pretty much helped me put the whole turbo build and everything together. Big thank you to Long. I know you guys might be saying like, hey, you could do this by yourself, you could do it in a weekend, blah, blah, blah. But since I had to do more stuff, like I did camps as well, so I got to take the whole thing apart. I didn't trust myself doing it, so I rather have an expert do it. So Long was doing it, and I was helping him here and there. So yeah, that was a big task, and I had to pay for labor as well. So I think Long's a buddy, so he hooked me up. I paid total $1,500 in labor, close to $1,500 in labor. But if you're bringing it to shop again, just the turbo kit alone, I think most shop charge about $1,000 to $2,000. My car was there for a long time, and then not just the turbo stuff, we also switched out a bunch of other parts as well. So for $1,500, he hooked it up for me. I know, again, some countries or states might charge different pricing for labor costs, so check with your local shop if you're not gonna do it yourself. I had a guy from overseas, a subscriber from I think somewhere in the Middle East, told me that a shop was trying to charge him $5,000 just for install, just for labor costs, which is pretty crazy. But yeah, 1,000 to 2,000 is where you budget for the install. So yeah, you add it up quickly. This build has been almost a year in the coming, just because I started collecting parts for the build back in November 2019. I had to work for my parts, you know, so pretty much I work, save up money, spend money, buy some parts, and then, you know, maybe after a few months or my next paycheck when I have a little bit of extra cash, just buy more parts. So make a whole parts list of what do you need, and then no rush. I mean, yes, you might not be able to drop like 2,000 or 3,000 to buy all the stuff at once, but just, you know, pace yourself, buy parts little by little. I know some guys might not be selling a full Ralliart, you know, turbo kit or full Evo 10 turbo kit, so you could just buy parts separately. For example, I'm selling some stuff that I didn't use, so like I sold my Ralliart intercooler piping. I still have my Ralliart intercooler I'm trying to sell. I still have my Ralliart blow-off valve I'm trying to sell. So stuff like that. Sometimes guys like myself who don't use it, we could sell it for pretty cheap. But I hope you guys like this cost breakdown video. I'm being pretty transparent with you guys, talking about costs of turbocharging your car. I know a lot of guys are like, I want to do it, it's more fun. Yeah, in the previous video where I talk about everything done to the car, this car, I'm not sure how much it's putting down exactly, but from rough estimation based on other turbo Lancers, there's a guy, Tony, from New York, also CVT transmission, also the 2.4 4B 12 engine. He's pushing about 10 pounds of boost, and I think he said on the dyno he made about 280 wheel horsepower, which translates to about 330 crank. So around 300 club, you know, which is not bad. The car is lighter than the Evo 10, I think 400 pounds lighter. The Lancers weigh in at 2,900 pounds, the Evo 10's at 3,300 pounds. So it's pretty awesome. I know some of you guys might be like, is it worth the money turbocharging a Mitsubishi Lancer, or am I just wasting money? It's all up to you. For me, yes, I spent a lot on this turbo build. But again, it's my car. I'm building it for how I want. I could definitely buy a car that's way quicker for the amount of money I spend in this car, but I love this car, and this car has a lot of sentimental value to me. And just to give you guys a little confidence booster, again, it's not the fastest thing in the world, but I recently saw on a page, a Facebook page, where people talk about like turbo Lancers and what cars have they beat in the turbo Lancers, what cars are they quicker in a race. I personally haven't gone up against any car yet, but there are guys, there are turbo Lancers out there who said they are quicker than Subaru WRXs, they are quicker than like stock Evo 10s in a road race, they're quicker than like even 5.0 Mustang GTs, which is pretty nuts, quicker than like your Dodge Challengers. So it's pretty cool. It's not the fastest thing in the world again, but it's enough. You know, the whole power to weight ratio is enough to have a little bit more fun. I also want to give a big thank you to everyone who has helped on this build. So first and foremost, I want to thank Long, again, with Long's Automotive. If you guys have been watching my videos for the past few months, you will know that I'm always at Long Shop checking my turbo build. Long finished the turbo build long ago, back in summer of 2020, but he let me keep the car there in storage for a few months because we were trying to get the whole tune going, and I live pretty far from the shop, almost an hour away, so he just wants to make sure that my car is running pretty good before I drive it back home. He didn't charge me extra for storing my car there in the garage at the shop, so that's really nice of him. Yeah, so big thank you to Long, owner of Long's Automotive. Make sure to check them out if you need any work done in Central Texas. They're located here in Austin. They do anywhere from mechanical stuff to paint to body work, mechanical, electrical issue, alignments, anything like that. The guys there at the shop also help out. Thank you, E-Man. Thank you, AJ. We also had some other guys from Garage Kozoku, like Thompson, as well as Andy, help out, you know, wire some gauges. So big thank you to them as well. Let's see, who else do we have? Big thank you to my tuner, Rick, with Rallinspired, for being patient with me and, you know, working back and forth, getting the car fine-tuned. I would also like to take this time to thank some of the turbo Mitsubishi Lancer guys like myself who, you know, turbocharged the car before me and helped me out, whether it's answering questions, helping me with my build. So big thank you to a couple guys. Big thank you to Scott Cowden. He owns a turbo Lancer CVT transmission for the past 7 years and he tracks it regularly, so big thank you. He was the one who told me stuff like, hey, get a transmission cooler, get a transmission fan, stuff like that. That's essential. Big thank you to Tony, otherwise known as JDM Tony on Instagram. He has a bright yellow turbocharged Lancer, also CVT transmission. Yeah, he answered a lot of my questions as well, so super badass build. He was the one ballsy enough to, you know, bring it on a dyno as well. I know some people say with CVT transmissions, they don't do too well on a dyno. You don't want to blow up the transmission, but he just went for it. So big thank you to Tony as well. Big thank you to Jordan. Jordan is another turbocharged Lancer here in Texas. He's located in Houston. He has a manual transmission Lancer GT. So 2015 Lancer GT, just like mine in manual. And he was one of the first few guys in Texas that I know of who turbocharged their Lancers. Super badass. He goes to a bunch of car shows as well. At this time, actually, he was on a Ralliart turbo setup. I think making around 300-ish. And then he recently tore down the whole build, built the block and everything, bigger turbo, and he's trying to push for more horsepower. So big props. There's also a bunch of other groups that I joined, like there's a Mitsubishi Lancer turbo group on Facebook. A lot of guys post their knowledge on there. Sometimes I ask silly questions. Like I say, I'm new to all this. Sometimes I ask silly questions and people bash me. People like say like, why does this guy not know his shit? But hey, I'm learning as well. Big thank you to Jonathan Bays. So Jonathan Bays, he pretty much custom fabricates all these oil lines, the turbo oil lines. And I didn't know where to get them. I could piece them myself, but again, I don't know much about AN fitting, stuff like that, what sizes. So Jonathan Bays, he's an OG Turbo Lancer owner himself. Big thank you to him. There's so many guys who kind of help along the way of this build, and it wouldn't be where it is today without them. But yeah, the car is definitely more fun with the turbo stuff. Make sure to stay tuned because I have a bunch of other plans, not quite turbo related. Some are turbo parts that I'll be swapping out. Some are cosmetic parts that I'll be swapping out, but stay tuned for a future video. I'll be talking about what more parts do I have right now that I'll be installing to the car really soon, so super exciting. Again, if you guys stay to the very end, don't forget to leave a thumbs up, subscribe if you're new to the channel. If you want to know when new videos are out, hit the notification bell, and if you guys want to catch up to speed from the very beginning, watch all my turbo builds videos. Make sure to hit up the playlist Mitsubishi Lancer Turbo Build. Thanks so much for watching and catch you guys in the next one.